Well, greetings everybody and welcome to this week's Metaworld News. This will be the highlights for the week ending the 15th of October 2017. That's the important bit, getting the year right. Okay, folks. Well, actually, it's quite a fairly short round of news, I think, this week. You can find me, Malbones, on Twitter at twitter.com/Malbones, or one word, MALBURNS. And we have an additional account for this show, which is twitter.com/Metaworld News, just as you see the name of the show on air. I'll start with the Malbones account, which is where all the general stuff gets sent, and go through the highlights from that account. First of all, 5 days ago we had an article at VentureBeat saying Microsoft's mixed reality guru, a chap called Alex Kipman, believes communication will be VR's killer app. Well, could have told him that. Good few years ago I could have done. Yes. Yep. But anyway, apparently this when they announced the mixed reality platform last week, and it talked about how a combination of virtual reality and augmented reality, which Microsoft of course has to give its own name, mixed reality, will create a new era in computing. And so Alex Kipman, who's a technical fellow, sorry, Microsoft, and the researcher behind the HoloLens headset, went on stage to answer questions from journalists, and made the point of saying that communication is what it's all about. That's the killer app. Well, yeah. Enough of that. Okay. Now, this is a weird one. We've heard a lot about something called Magic Leap that is coming, highly sort of secretive thing. Basically, it's an augmented reality system, I gather, where you can, look at the hologram of a dinosaur on your coffee table and do stuff like that using whatever their technology is, and they refuse to say. But oddly enough, we have found out, courtesy of uploadvr.com, that comic books are coming to Magic Leap via an app called Metaworld. I actually have Metaworld. It's not so much a comic book reader as such. There are plenty of those around too, where you can get your comic books and graphic novels. But Metaworld is full of actual sort of comic strips, as it were, that are unique to the platform, and they mix sound and motion and vision together. I mean, they stay loosely within the idea of the frames of a comic book, but you'll read one frame and then you'll get to another frame, but the other frame's got motion in it. And all the frames, for example, have sound effects and stuff like that. So it's taking the idea of the comic book strip format and the frames a bit of a leap forward. And apparently, whatever this Magic Leap technology ends up being, you're going to be able to view the Metaworld comic strips, which are unique to Metaworld, but some pretty big name creators, Dave Gibbons and people like that, work for them. You'll be able to view these with Magic Leap. I mean, whether that simply means the Metaworld comic book will appear in the air before you, or whether you'll be able to involve yourself more in the frames, I have no idea. But it's quite interesting that that connection has been made. Also, the publicity shot actually for the Metaworld app currently on the Oculus Store. It shows the logo for DC Comics, which of course are part of Warner Communications. As far as I know, Metaworld has always been independent, but the Caped Crusader character on the cover of this one, maybe that is where the DC logo is a requirement. Anyway, so they've obviously got stuff in their collection that isn't all their own property, so distributing wise. So uploadvr.com has news on that. Basically, some way that Magic Leap will bring comic strips into VR. Right. Engadgets have a report from 4 days ago about NVIDIA, they who make all the wonderful graphics cards we use and everything else. Increasingly these days, there's been a shortage of NVIDIA chips and stuff because people have been buying the cards to because the GPU, graphical processing unit, is notoriously better than most CPUs in computers, which is just a computer processing unit, and they're using graphic cards as the main processors for doing complicated stuff. But anyway, NVIDIA has opened up its holodeck VR design suite. NVIDIA are going all out on VR and stuff like that, and basically NVIDIA, a company that does both things well, let's say AR and VR, has been particularly strong on the business side recently, and this is a holodeck intelligent VR platform being sent round to selected designers and development. It allows for photorealistic graphics, haptics, real-world physics, and multi-user collaboration. And we don't know much more than that. Something tells me that this will be more a kit kind of thing rather than a desktop experience, and it's probably out at the home kind of advanced holodecks, but we will see. So find more about that one at Engadget. Voicesofvr.com, one this week I picked up on, number 585, consciousness hacking and virtual reality. Every week that goes by, they come up with longer and longer and more mind-blowing titles for this series. Consciousness hacking and VR. Will immersive tech drive addictions or help us transcend compulsions? Interesting issue to look at, and they were doing that on Voices of VR this week, and they were quoting bits from the Guardian survey, Guardian newspaper in the UK. Anyway, so you can read a little bit about you can read a little bit about it at voicesofvr.com, or you can actually listen to the whole hour-long podcast. Virtuality-news.net. Virtual reality brings our 30,000-year-old Homo sapien ancestors back in 3D for the first time. I love all this stuff, to be honest, whether it needs a helmet or not. I don't think this does. It's basically the idea of restoring long-lost history into virtual reality. In this particular case, I suppose you can only really call them avatars of our ancestors. Anyway, interesting stuff there, educational. If nothing else. VRScout.com talks about this VR experience is powered by positive thinking. The world brings, it positively moves the world. I think this is the name of the company, positive, or the organization Positively Moves the World. And they're bringing a brain-controlled interface, yes, here we go again, a brain-controlled interface technology that will work with Gear VR via a headband. And actually, I'm just going to open up this link very quickly, if it opens quick enough for me, because this looks like a very... yes, the opening quote. There's no shortage of bizarre control schemes for VR experiences these days. After all, developers are still experimenting with various methods they hope will become standard. And no surprise, we have some truly unique options popping up almost every week. And yeah, basically it's merging Gear VR with a brain-controlled interface, and okay, the tasks involved actually are to do with applying your mind to, say, sitting by a waterfall and using your mind to raise yourself further up the structure and take in details and things. This VR experience is powered specifically by, guess what? Positive thinking. So there you go. We'll be here all day if I try and get to the heart of that article. And that's it for the main Twitter highlights this week. As I said, a quiet week. I'm moving into our Metaworld stream temporarily. Hypergrid Business, David there reports that Tangle's Halloween Expo starts today, and if you're watching this live, and continue watching when we have on the hour, we have In World Review, and we'll be hearing a bit more about that expo from one of our guests from Tangle Grid. hgsafari.blogspot.com. Safari goes to Counter Earth. This is Thezaremba's write-up of one of this week's Safari destination. And at the same site, we have a post called Safari and the Ladies of Legend, which is a write-up of another destination Safari went to. It was actually a new installation by Cherry Manga over on Franco Grid, and as it was a giant woman, and the landing point is inside her navel. But more importantly, she had a whole range of exhibits around this giant woman, and they were archives of some of her older expositions, and she was giving a lot of the created artworks she'd done away for free for people who wanted to copy them. So needless to say, a lot of people weren't even watching chat. They were too busy right-clicking copy. Right, 4 days ago, this is an interesting post. It's from Hamlet Orr's blog, which principally deals with Second Life, though they do cover Science Space and Sansor a bit. But he had a post about Decentraland, the ambitious open standard-based social VR world project, which raised $25 million last August to fund development. And he reports that they have now, this New World Notes blog is awkward. It doesn't allow click-through, and it's sort of a kind of 3-click through, basically. Okay, here we are. Right. Decentraland, the Ethereum-funded VR world, shifts to become web-based. Basically, they've just announced a less ambitious, if perhaps more scalable shift in the project. So it's now going to be developed using something called Fontus, Fontus, which is a web-based virtual world software. And he does give you a link where you can click here to get a first-hand demo. I hasten to add that it's not a demo of the software; it's a demo of what it can do. And it doesn't. Yeah, the one I clicked on my iPad didn't do much at all. But that may be the iPad, not the not the venue. Proof of concept was to build on Unity, and our own blockchain. And develop from there, and they'll be working off Fontus to save time and get proof of concept to developers faster. This really does seem like they're pitching it as an experience for developers to get going with the sort of thing. Hamlet sums it up. So it's a sort of Minecraft meets VR meets the blockchain. Could be a better direction for what they're aiming for. Anyway, so that's news on obviously a slight change of direction, or maybe a major change of direction, depending on how you look at it, for Decentraland, which has been, of course, in the offing for a while. Blog.sign.space. That's a blog dot a sign SINE dot space. This is actually the blog for Science Space, all one words, virtual world. And they posted a creator spotlight on a friend of ours, Spiral Silverstar. He's been on a couple of our shows from time to time. Lots of fractal animations and all the other stuff he does, which is available in Science Space as well as OpenSim and probably Second Life. So interesting creator spotlight there on Spiral. Automatic creation of compressed assets by the High Fidelity server. You'll find information and a video indeed about this at blog.highfidelity.com. High Fidelity is spelled HIGHFIDELITY. So blog.highfidelity.com. And basically, it has to do with compressing meshes and textures on their servers to get things running even faster and everything else. And Philip Rosedale, who runs that platform, of course, is his background, even long before he founded Second Life, is compression technologies. So good to see that High Fidelity is compressing itself, so to speak. Right, that's it for that bit. And I'm just going to have a quick looking here now at Google Plus to see if there's anything coming up there that we didn't get covered elsewhere. And the answer is no, except for a post that I sent up yesterday. This address, HIE.GIG ddnss.org. This is the actual link address for the website for our Hypergrid International Expo that is happening mid-December, the week after OSCC, in fact. And there's very little there yet, except for a general summary of what things for presenters and stuff like that. But that's if you're wondering about that address, Hypergrid Expo does have its own grid. It's a 4-region multiplex grid for the event, and it's actually the same address as you use as a hypergridder with. I think we're hie.ddnss.org. :8002, I think, is the grid address, but you'll get more of that at the time. But anyway, we do have the thing there if you want it. And just before I do anything else, I'm going to actually just show a couple of pictures on our left-hand screen here. One is the advert telling you that Open Simulator Community Conference comes up December 9th and 10th. And just when you've had a good look at that, I will flick to this one, which doesn't have the dates on. This is the following weekend, 16th, 17th, if I recall, the Hypergrid International Expo. So those are two grids, things that are coming up. And if you're wondering about that logo, by the way, do look carefully at it. It looks very abstract, I was told at first, but nice job by Thursday. You basically got an array of hypergates there, but if you look in the background carefully, you can see all the European international flags are sort of blended together in the background there. It's a bit more thought out than it might appear at first sight. Okay. Thank you, Thursday, for that picture. Right, okay. Well, I think that's it from me. But of course, we do have James here, who may have a little bit of news from the old developers' corner, as it were. So over to you, James.
Yeah, hi, Mel. Thanks. It was not a very dense meeting on Tuesday. This is when the OpenSim developers join with anybody from the public who wants to ask questions about the Open Simulator side of our virtual world. And people were having some connectivity problems, so I think that's what kept the meeting from really getting as dense as it usually is. There was some discussion about slow loading mesh. Little bit about trying to identify server versus client lag, and trying to come up with a better sense of that. There are some tools in some of the viewers to see if you're really experiencing a server or a client issue, but that was about the extent of that. And then we had a discussion about Kokua. That was just wondering what the status of that viewer was. A couple comments. Is any viewer dedicated to Open Simulator? And that kind of left that open. it wasn't really answered. But then someone emphasized, even though the Open Simulator viewers may not be updated, they should continue working with the Open Simulator code. So, but still something a little bit of concerning. So. And then we talked about our favorite computers. Did we start with Commodore or IBM or all of those?
Oh, very good. Or BBC Micro even.
A little bit, yep. A little bit of nostalgia. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, very good. I'd love to see somebody try and get a virtual world up and running on a Commodore. I did hear that. Whether it was the old LucasArts thing or from way back or whatever, I did hear somebody managed to do it, but it wasn't kind of anything that we would write home about these days. For viewers who wonder what Kokua is, it's a yet another virtual worlds viewer. It does basically, the chap who runs it is retiring and looking for people to take over the project. It does actually, it's a bit like Firestorm in some ways. It has two strands. One for OpenSim and one for Second Life, and I think there are people in play keeping the code up to date for Second Life, whereas the OpenSim version is a variant, and they were looking for somebody to take over development of that. I gather some people have tried downloading source code, although possibly the wrong source code from what I hear in the gossip columns. But there was a recent post at the blog, the Kakua blog, sort of highlighting everything and source code, resources and everything. So the blog has up-to-date information if you need it. I don't actually have the address handy. I think actually Kokua came out of another older viewer called Imprudence, as in imprudent or prudent, but with an in front of it. And I think their blog address is still something like blog imprudence, whatever. But I'm sure you can use that magic Google machine to find it if you really want to. Right, okay, well, that's it for this week. Thanks to James for Developer News. And we will be back same time, same place next week with everything pertinent that we can find. We'll see you then. Have a good week. Bye for now.